Concerning the Hanocha Bilti Mugah of the Rebbe, Hanocha Bilti Mugah means that someone wrote down what the Rebbe said by a Farbrengen, but the Rebbe did not edit it. The word Hanocha by Chassidim meant writing down what the Rebbe said. Hanocha means to put it down on the ksav, to put it down in writing of what the Rebbe said Baal Peh orally. So sometimes the Rebbe would be Magia, and Lekutei Sichos is all Mugah by the Rebbe, but most of the Farbrengens were not Mugah by the Rebbe. The Rebbe didn't edit it. But after the Farbrengen, the Chassidim would write down what the Rebbe said, what they remember, what they understood from the Rebbe said. And that's called the Hanocha. And since the Rebbe wasn't Magia, it's called Hanocha Bilti Mugah. Now, the first years of the Rebbe's Nesiyas, the Rebbe did not allow to print in any form or shape these Hanochas if they were not Mugah. All he allowed was that they should type it up. Not even make it in a stencil. Those days there used to be a stencil. Even the lower level of a stencil was like the blue stencils that the schools used to use to make some copies. The Rebbe didn't allow that either. So what they used to do, it was typed. And when they typed, they put in many papers with carbon copies in between. So when you would type it, all these copies would get what is typed. They would put in very skinny paper. It was called onion skin paper. And put carbon copies in between, like 15 copies at a time, 15 papers with carbon copy. So when you typed the Hanocha, you'd come out with 15 copies. To make copies on a copy machine like we do now was not possible. It was very expensive, probably cost $1 a page. In those days, $1 was like now, who knows how much, $1 a page. So they used to put these copies in, and that's how they would type. And then somebody else would type it again and come up with the copies, and that's how it was mefursa. But the Rebbe did not want it to be printed in any form or shape. This went on till about Tovshin Yutes. Tovshin Yutes, they started already with the Rishus of the Rebbe to give out the Hanochas Bilti Mugah, the Sichas and the Maimorim, on the blue stencils, which was a very, very unofficial way of printing things, but it wasn't printed. The words were in typing. The font was a type, only a typewriter type. And they came out the blue copies. That was already more than before, but it's still not really official. Came to about Tovshin Chaf Aleph, the Rebbe even allowed another level, which is to have it on the black stencils. Black stencil was already called a Gestetner stencil, it used to be called, and that was more official, but still not official. It was not anything of official print. And that the Rebbe allowed. The reason the Rebbe did not allow the officially printing of the Bilti Mugah, because since he didn't check it over, there could be mistakes there. It all depends on what people remembered, how they understood it, things like that. So therefore, the Rebbe didn't want. Even when they did not do it official, the Rebbe wanted it should say Hanocha Bilti Mugah. It should say clearly that this is not edited by the Rebbe. And actually, when they gave out afterwards on the stencils, first the blue and then the black, every page on the bottom it said Hanocha Bilti Mugah, that this is Hanocha only. It's something that was written by people, and it's Bilti Mugah. It's not edited by the Rebbe. The reason why the Rebbe wanted it that way is because, as the Rebbe wrote once, that limreis kolo ashores, kol ashgiyos, hoichos achishbeini. Be'erech, I don't remember exact, but I think these were the words, which means, in spite of all the warnings that you warn, like writing that it's Bilti Mugah, still all the mistakes go on my account. That means if a person finds a mistake, he will attribute it to the Rebbe. He won't say, well, probably the person who wrote it down didn't understand or didn't write it correctly. Probably will say that the Rebbe made a mistake, chas v'sholom. So the Rebbe said, so how could you be mefarsim it? So the Rebbe originally did not want it should be nesparsim. Then there was a zettel from the Rebbe, which was behemshech, I think, to that zettel I mentioned before. When someone gave in to the Rebbe one of the hanochas of a Farbrengen and said, I want to be mefarsem this to yeshivas, to different places, the Rebbe wrote like this. I mentioned many times in the underline the word come upon me, especially when it gets to those people who are not anash yet, that when you give something out, it has to have marim mekaymis. It has to have the sources. Ubim especially to bavon you have to bavon, make sure that you write, if there is any question on what it says in the Sikha from a Maimer Chazal or from a Psak Din, you have to bavon it, you have to answer it. Things like that. Al kaponim tirut beremes. Certainly, at least there should be a hint to the answer. Upshite, for sure the Rebbe writes, a posuk and Maimer Chazal yeketsurosei. A posuk and Maimer Chazal has to be written as it is, because when the Rebbe would say a posuk, certainly he would not say the way it's written in the posuk many times, and even in Maimer Chazal, not always did he quote it the way it's written, but when you write it down and you mefarsem it, has to be written properly the way it says. or befrad beniden didan, and certainly the Rebbe says in that sicha that the person gave in this case, Ramasti hatzorich bavorenish, by the Farbrengen was Merames hinted to a question that's there from a din of Eisek b'tzorch tzibur. Concerning this din of somebody is Eisek b'tzorch tzibur, shlayukshem Shulchan Aruch Siman Ayin, there shouldn't be a question from Shulchan Aruch Siman Ayin. Okay, moving the Rebbe writes, it's understood, Leisam Leivla calls that, two exclamation points, that no one didn't pay attention to it. So the Rebbe is saying, like in this sikha that you gave in as a sample to send out, I found things which is not exact. So B'meila, the Rebbe did not really want it should come out. But years later, beginning of the Lamed already, the Rebbe was maskim that Hanocha built in Mugah should be printed. And the reason is, we will talk about it in the next voice note.